You know, Tim, my favorite set of movies that you have so far is the Red Sea Miracle Part 1 and 2, where you gave both a Hebrew perspective and an Egyptian perspective. You gave the Egyptian one first, and I went to the movie theater to see that when it first came out. And in Charlotte here, they actually had to open 2 movie theaters because by the time I went to get my ticket, the first theater was sold out, and I had to go to the second one. And during the intermission, everyone was just enthralled talking about the movie. I've never seen people respond to a movie like that.
Well, we're very thankful for that. We know that that isn't all me. It's because they're enthralled about hearing evidence for the Bible. And my calling has been just to look for it and to put it together in as best of a way that I can. And also, you know, in these films, I'm trying to make it so it's understandable. Oftentimes when I talk with scholars, it's a bit complex. And so I try to simplify things. I'm trying not to oversimplify. But as you know, there are 2 approaches. One we called the Egyptian, and an Egyptian approach that was people who looked at the events of the Exodus happening very close to Egypt, and that it happened at a shallow, marshy lake. And that's where the idea of a reed sea comes from. That the Israelites, when they were trapped at the sea, that at night a wind blew over a body of water, and wind set down and kind of pushed the water aside and would create a path, an opening along the shoreline, for them to go into the water and cross. Then the Hebrew approach says, nope, that's not what happened. They're saying, no, this event didn't happen next to Egypt. This event happened at the Gulf of Aqaba. Many people have believed that the Gulf of Aqaba, every time the word in Hebrew, Yam Suf, which is the Hebrew word for the sea that was crossed, every time that word is used, it's also used to identify the Gulf of Aqaba, which is the southern tip of Israel. That's the Red Sea part of that southern tip there. So what ends up happening is that group believes that, or many in that group believes that God didn't just use the wind. He supernaturally parted the water, so that the water was like walls of water on each side of the Israelites. So when they walked through, that there were walls of water. And so we're going to look at another clip, and this is really about a little bit about the golden wheel, and because that's what got me interested years ago. People searching for chariot wheels, and was this the location? So this is a clip that I wanted to share about that.
Possibly the most controversial find came in 1988.
I use some electronics that can tell you where gold is located at a distance. And so I triangulated from the shoreline. I went down and, shall we say, started moving silt and stuff until I actually found this gold veneer chariot wheel.
I contacted Dr. Gregor Hudson, a marine geologist and coral expert. He is also the founder of Reef Check. I showed him images of Wyatt's gold veneer chariot wheel.
The suspicious thing about that particular photograph is that the wheel is extremely clean. And as we can see from the underwater footage, anything that sits on the bottom for any period of time that's got a nice flat surface to it will be encrusted with all kinds of living organisms, from squishy little sponges to hard calcareous objects, from bryozoans to corals. And so it's extremely suspicious looking to see an object like that.
Over time, the claims by Wyatt and the other Exodus explorers became widely criticized because of their inability to verify their finds, as well as their amateur approach. This has caused scholars to dismiss the Gulf of Aqaba as an option for the sea crossing, too far, too deep, and too controversial with its connection to Ron Wyatt. However, Wyatt wasn't the first to suggest a sea crossing at Aqaba, or that Mount Sinai was in Arabia. A century earlier, Charles Beeke, one of England's preeminent geographers, also proposed these areas. But for these radical ideas, he was stripped of his gold medal for his achievements in geography. all these Exodus explorers defended themselves by claiming they were documenting sites that no one would acknowledge had potential connection to the Bible. And in some cases, these sites were off limits, even to archaeologists. But the question remains, whoever put pillars here, whether one or two, what were they marking? Wyatt's claims divided people. Some believed he was led by God, but there were others who argued he was a fraud just out to make money. I never met Ron Wyatt. He died several years before I was involved, but I did interview people who knew him. Harry Klemke was one of them. Lemke joined the fire department right out of high school. He later joined the U.S. Forest Service as a hotshot, jumping out of helicopters to fight remote wildfires. He went on to get a degree in business at Cal Berkeley.
I always wanted to work in national security matters. I ended up getting accepted, went all the way through the process, started working for the government, national security matters, federal law enforcement.
So tell me how you got involved diving at the Red Sea.
I always had an interest in biblical stories. And I happened to meet an amateur archaeologist by the name of Ron Wyatt. I thought, I need to meet this person firsthand to verify, one, the messenger, and two, personally, if I can, evaluate whether or not they had any credibility.
I know that people have been very critical of Ron Wyatt, thinking that he's not credible.
Sure. Let's be honest. One man finding this location, as well as, quote, a lot of other locations that he's made the claim to find. I think if somebody is not skeptical to begin with, just believes it at face value, they're not doing exactly what they should do. Because what does the Bible say? It says,